Hello, my name is Kristen Schlick, and this is my mini unit on time for second grade. I called it All About Time. So this was my plan. I started to look at the previous year in first grade to find out what they needed to know. So they needed to know how to tell and write time in hours and half hours using an analog and digital clocks. Then I looked at the second grade standard, which is to tell time and write time from analog and digital clocks to the nearest 5 minutes using AM and PM. So I went back and forth and thought, okay, how can I do this in a seamless, progressive way? So I started to go back and look at a diagnostic test for the kids to find out if they really do know the hour and the half using an analog and a digital clock. So that's where I started. And then I thought, what's the next logical step to take to get kids to go from a half hour down to 5 minutes? So what I started to look at was the whole and the half are fractions. So I decided to go from whole hour and half hours down to quarter hours to promote again that thought of fractions. So once I was able to get the whole and the half and the quarter, then it was pretty easy to go down to the 5 minutes because I had them skip counting by fives in order to correct themselves for the half hour and the quarter hours. So my biggest challenge, I would say, was to take kids past just being able to read the clock for time, but to kind of have a concept of time and how time passes and things that you may be able to get done within a certain period of time. So I had them doing a lot of activities where they were really picking and choosing items at a rodeo. Like I had a big rodeo schedule and they were there and they only had a certain amount of time to be at the rodeo, so what kind of things would they choose? Would they choose to see events? Would they choose to see shows? And then I made it so there was different shops open at different times, kind of on a little scavenger hunt. They needed to go buy a hat at the hat store, and they wanted to enter themselves in a chili contest, so they needed to know what time that started. And so I really had them looking at time and how it fit together. So I'd say that was my biggest challenge, was just to create that understanding, and hopefully that would work within an actual class setting. So then I figure my biggest success was I really enjoyed creating the activities to get the kids moving. I had them building a giant clock within the classroom where they would choose a card that had a certain time on it, and they would need to go with a partner and be at those different markers, time markers in the class. And I had also minute markers to the 5 minutes, and they needed to go and say 20 after. So they would need to go put a card in the clock in the room. I had jars out, 12 jars, and they would need to go to the 20-minute mark, which would be, of course, the number 4. And put a card in there. So I tried to have them moving around the room too. And also I really enjoyed making worksheets that fit my criteria for what I had for the children's learning experience. I know there are a lot of things on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it seemed as though when I was looking for inspiration, a lot of those things were maybe 80% what I wanted or 90% what I wanted, but just didn't quite fill that criteria the way that I could do for myself. So this was a great experience for me. So thank you for looking at my presentation, and I look forward to looking at all of yours.